This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good Erev Yom Tov and a good Erev Shabbos, Rabbi. Welcome, everyone. We know that tonight, aside from being the Yom Tov of Sukkos, is also Shabbos. So I want to share with you, when you study the Psukim in Parshas Emor about the Yom Tov of Sukkos, so you encounter a few anomalies. First says, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Lemar. Daber al bnei Yisrael Lemar b'chamisha asar yom lachodesh shvi hazeh chag ha-Sukkos shivas yom l'Hashem. So, on the 15th day of this 7th month is Chag ha-Sukkos. 7 days. Bayim Arishan mikra kodesh l'chzavadasu shivas yom takriv ishal Hashem. Bayim Hashmini mikra kodesh yeh lachem. Okay. Fine. So, what do we know about the Yom Tov of Sukkos? You need to sit in the sukkah. What about the Daled Minim? I don't know. I guess there's no such thing as Daled Minim because it doesn't say anything about them. There is no mention of the Daled Minim. And that is the conclusion of the Yom Tov of Sukkos. Oh, wait a second. But on the 15th day of this 7th month, when you gather the grain of the land, celebrate 7 days. Okay, we know that already. Oh, right. And you need to take on the first day, Priyetz Hadar, a citron, kapos tamarim, a lulav, anafes avos, willows, ahadasim, v'arvei nachal, willows, usmachtem v'neshem l'kechem shivas yomim. V'chagoy says, oisoi chag Hashem shivas yomim. And by the way, also you should sit in the sukkah for 7 days. Kol ezach b'yisrael yeshu b'sukkos man yedu doreseichem eidar meshma zezhem b'nei Yisrael. So there are a number of interesting points over here. Number one is the Yom Tov of Sukkos is discussed twice. First it says, on the 15th day of this month, Sukkos. And then it says, again, and then it concludes in discussion with Eila Mayad Hashem Asher Tigros Mikrai Kodesh. And then it goes back and it says, Ach v'chamisha siyam l'chodesh shvi b'asron zus haaretz. So isn't it strange and unusual that the Torah discusses Sukkos twice? Furthermore, in the first discussion, there is no mention of the Daled Minim. All it says is, sit in the sukkah. Chag ha-Sukkos shivas yomim l'Hashem. And then shivas yomim takrivu ishal Hashem. Bayom hashmini mikra kodesh yeh lachem v'kraftem ishal Hashem. And then the second time around, it says, Ach v'chamisha yom l'chodesh. It says, take the Daled Minim, and it says, sit in the sukkah. So number one, why are there two discussions of the Yom Tov of Sukkos? Number two, why the first time does it only mention the sukkah, and it doesn't mention the Daled Minim, and the second time it mentions both? And why the first time does it say, V'chamisha asar yom la'chodesh hashvi hazeh? And the second time it says, Ach v'chamisha asar yom. Why the first time does it say, B'chamisha asar yom la'chodesh hashvi hazeh, and the second time it says, Ach v'chamisha asar yom la'chodesh hashvi? What is the meaning of that? Now, there is an amazing approach which is brought by the in the drashas of the Oneg Yom Tov. I also saw in the Sefer Oitzos HaTorah. And let's start with the version in the Oitzos HaTorah. Tzarech biur b'pasuk zeh HaTorah koseves rakis mitzvahs sukkah. In the beginning of the discussion of the Yom Tov of Sukkos, the Torah only mentions the mitzvah of sukkah, and it does not discuss anything about the Daled Minim. Only after a number of sukkim it says, Ach v'chamisha asar yom la'chodesh hashvi, ve'as b'chem es tfuas ha'aretz, t'choygus chag Hashem, be'yom harishon v'adayin, u'lakachtem lachem. So that's number one. The first time, no discussion of Daled Minim. The second time, yes. Number two, Madua kafla Torah chiv l'shmar yom rishon shel Sukkos. Why does the Torah talk about the first day twice? Furthermore, it kasha the pasuk rishon nemer chamisha hazeh. what is the meaning of the word hazeh? Why doesn't it say, so there's a very interesting approach that he says he saw explained, and I'll show you one of the Makairos. We know there's a concept of at, bash, gar, dak, hatz, vap, za, chas. Okay, basically you exchange the first letter for the last letter, and one of the times that this is most prominent is in calculating the arrangement of the Jewish calendar. At, if the first day of Pesach comes out on Shabbos, then Taf, Tisha B'Av that year will come out on Shabbos. Beis, if the second day of Pesach comes out on Sunday, Shin, Shavuos will come out on Sunday. If the third day of Pesach is Monday, then Reish, Rosh Hashanah, will come out on Monday. V'chein hala. If the fourth day of Pesach is Tuesday, then Kuf, whatever Kuf stands for. But that's a formula that is brought in the Shulchan Aruch. Ad Bash. Whatever is the first day of Pesach will be Tisha B'Av. Whatever is the second day of Pesach will be Shavuos. Whatever is the third day of Pesach will be Rosh Hashanah. Now, the year that Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, Pesach was a Thursday. How do we know? Because Yud Nisan was Shabbos Haggadah. So if Yud Nisan was Shabbos Haggadah, the first day of Pesach was Thursday. So if the first day of Pesach was Thursday, then it comes out that Rosh Hashanah of that year comes out on Shabbos. Why? Because if the first day of Pesach was Thursday, then Tisha B'Av that year was Thursday, and the second day of Pesach was Friday, so Shavuos was Friday, and the third day of Pesach was Shabbos. So if the third day of Pesach was Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah was Shabbos. Now, Marv Rabbi said if Rosh Hashanah that year was Shabbos, the first day of Sukkos was Shabbos. So it comes out, V'im Rosh Hashanah chal ba'is Hashanah b'Shabbos, Chag HaSukkos Hashanah chalu b'Shabbos. And when it falls out on Shabbos, we don't take the Daled Minim. Now, you'll ask, wait a second. I know when Rosh Hashanah falls, when Sukkos falls out on Shabbos, you don't take the Daled Minim, but isn't that a Gezerah of Rabbah? Wasn't Rabbah the one who made that Gezerah? So we said recently in a Shiur, regarding Rosh Hashanah that comes out on Shabbos, we quoted Rabbi Yosef Engel, and Rabbi Yosef Engel says the Gezerah of Rabbah was such an early Gezerah, it existed from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai, they did not blow shofar when Rosh Hashanah came out on Shabbos, and they did not take the Daled Minim when Rosh Hashanah, when Sukkot came out on Shabbos. So according to this cheshbon, the psukim read unbelievably. Why? Meyata Yuvan Berhetiv. Hapsukim Arishonim Medabrim Al Chag HaSukkos Sha'amdu by Bnei Yisrael. Look at these psukim. First, Moshe Rabbeinu is addressing the year that they left Egypt. Daber al Bnei Yisrael Imar. B'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi hazeh. This year, this 15th of the 7th. This, now in the discussion of this year, there's no mention of Daled Minim, because you're not going to take the Daled Minim, because Sukkot comes out on Shabbos. The only thing you need to know is Chag HaSukkos Shavas Yomim Lashem. So, and then Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm finished discussing the Yomim Tovim. Eile Moyadei Hashem Asher Tigroisa Mikroi Kodesh. Now, Kinderlach, you need to know that in the future there's going to be something called Sukkos, and there will be Daled Minim. Now that I finished telling you what you need to know now, in general, not hazeh. Shivas Yomim, Bayim Rishon, Abasam Yom Shvi, Shabbos Kalam Yom Rishon, Priyet Tzadva, Nafei Tzavos. Meyata Yuvan Ber Hetiv, Hapsukim Harishonim Medabrim Al Chag HaSukkos, Shamda B'Bnei Yisrael, Cheshaz Hazeh. Ve'akavan Al Chag HaSukkos Shaya B'Shana Sheba Yatzim Mitzrayim. Because whenever it says hazeh, it's talking about something that's in front of you. Therefore, there's no mention of the Daled Minim, since Chag HaSukkos that year fell out on Shabbos. But afterwards, the Torah is speaking on Chag HaSukkos of every year. And then it says, Ulakachtem lachem hayim arishayin priyetz hadar, kapois tamarim anafetz avos v'arvei nachal, v'hu hafla v'fela. He says if he may say so himself, this is a wondrous pshat. Now, the Oitzrois HaTorah is a beautiful set of svarim. I highly recommend it, but it's a likut from this generation. Where does this come from? So one of the places that I found it in is in the drashas of the Oneg Yom Tov. He says, "V'yesh l'dakdek d'b'yoyim ha'kippurim u'v'sukkos ksiv hashvi hazeh u'v'mitzvos lulav ksiv hashiv lo ksiv hazeh." So he says like this: "V'nira dihine amar chazal b'ksuvas, my almana mana." What is an almana? From Lashon almana, kamar almana d'chsiva b'iraisa mai. Right. The reason why an almana is called almana is because her ksuba is one mana. So the Gemara says, well, why is it called an almana in the Chumash? There was no mana yet. Amarle da asidin rabbanan de miskanila mana, because the rabbis are destined to be masaki an almana for an almana. So he's saying a little different than Rabbi Yosef Engel. It's not that in that year the Gzeira was already in effect, but it was al shem ha'ased. Say, now in Rosh Hashanah we learned Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah that falls out on Shabbos. In the Beis Hamikdash they would blow shofar, but not in the Medina. Why? Because of Gzeira D'Rabba. Now here's an amazing thing, friends. 2 times in the Torah it talks about blowing the shofar. In Emor it says Zichron Trua. Elsewhere it says Yom Trua. Why do you think in Emor it says Zichron Trua? Because Emor is talking about the year they left Mitzrayim. And regarding Rosh Hashanah, it says V'chodesh Hashvi Hazeh. And that year they didn't blow shofar either. So that's why it says Zichron Trua. It doesn't say Yom Trua in Emor. V'nei be'emor d'chsev Zichron Trua. Therefore, it's talking about Shabbos. And the Chacham were goizer not to blow on Rosh Hashanah Shechal b'Shabbos because of Rabbah. Like we find over there on Rosh Hashanah, one pasuk says Yom Trua and one pasuk says Zichron Trua. Kan kishacho b'chol, kan b'shacho b'Shabbos. And since Rosh Hashanah came out on Shabbos, so that year Sukkos also came out on Shabbos. Therefore, regarding Yom Kippurim, where Diba'asar l'chodesh ksiv hazeh, regarding Yom Kippur, where it says hazeh, v'chein in mitzvah sukkah, there's no nafkamina legabe, whether it's a weekday or Shabbos, but legabe lulav, there is a nafkamina. Because when it comes out on Shabbos, the Chacham were goizer, and therefore, it doesn't say hazeh by lulav, because the command of lulav was not talking about a year that Rosh Hashanah comes out on, it was not talking about a year that Sukkot comes out on Shabbos. So, this year, of course, we know that tonight is Shabbos, and we're not going to be taking the lulav tomorrow. And this again is merumaz in the fact that the Torah, when teaching us about the Yom Tov of Sukkos, does not mention the lulav, because it's also talking about a year that Sukkos comes out on Shabbos. Okay.
It's mashma from the way you interpret the Sukkah that the first Sukkos in the first year, it's not a moed. Because it says Chaka Sukkos, right? And then later on, when it talks about it says Eila Moadei Hashem.
No, Eila Moadei is going on all of the above mentioned.
But it only starts, those are after the first year. But in the first year, it says Chaka, Yom Hashvi Hazeh Chaka Sukkos.
No, Eila is going on above. Eila, these above are the Moadim of Hashem.
Not going forward.
Yeah.
Not going forward.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all on this Indian of Sukkos that comes out on Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.